My name is Eleanor Hayes, and at 72 years old, I thought I had already lived the hardest chapters of my life. I was wrong. The house on Elm Avenue had been my home for 43 years, a sprawling Victorian with gingerbread trim, wide porches, and windows that caught the morning light like stained glass. Richard and I bought it the year we married, young and foolishly in love, with nothing but a down payment scraped together from overtime shifts and wedding gifts. We painted every room ourselves, planted the rose garden that would later win local awards, and filled the walls with photographs. Lydia's first steps on the wide oak staircase, Christmases with a tree that touched the 12-foot ceiling, summer evenings on the back porch listening to crickets while Richard strummed his old guitar. When Richard died 7 years ago, suddenly, cruelly, a heart attack in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, the house became both refuge and burden. Too many rooms echoed with his absence. But I couldn't leave. Every floorboard held a memory. Every window framed a season we'd watched together. This was our life, preserved in plaster and wood. I would rather rattle around in its emptiness than abandon it. Lydia, our only child, had moved away long ago. She'd built a glittering life in the city, a high-powered marketing director for a luxury brand, married to Marcus Vale, a venture capitalist whose smile never quite reached his eyes. They lived in a glass-walled condo overlooking the river, attended galas, posted curated photos of European vacations and rooftop brunches. We saw each other on holidays, occasional birthdays, and the odd Sunday when guilt or obligation brought them out to the suburbs. Our conversations were polite, surface level. I told myself that was normal. Children grow up, they build their own world. But 8 months before everything shattered, something shifted. It began with questions. "Mom, have you ever thought about downsizing?" Lydia asked one Sunday over coffee in my kitchen. She stirred her latte with a manicured finger, eyes flicking around the room as if cataloging flaws. "This house is a lot. The maintenance, the taxes, it must be overwhelming." I laughed it off. "I manage just fine, sweetheart. The garden keeps me busy and the knitting circle meets here twice a month. I like having the space." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just thinking ahead. You're not getting any younger." The comment stung more than I admitted. At 72, I wasn't ancient. I hiked 3 miles every Saturday on the wooded trails behind the community center. I volunteered at the library, teaching seniors how to use tablets and smartphones. I'd even taken up watercolor painting. But Lydia spoke as though I were already fading. The questions continued. Every phone call, every visit, they circled back to the house. "Have you looked into reverse mortgages? What would you do with all this equity if you sold? Don't you worry about the stairs, one fall and—" Marcus joined in during their visits, wandering the rooms with the appraising eye of a man who bought and flicked properties for fun. "Great bones," he'd say, tapping a wall. "But the wiring's original, right? And that furnace? 1970s? You're throwing money away on utilities." I began to feel watched, judged, reduced to a liability in my own home. Then the unannounced visit started. One Tuesday afternoon, I was pruning my heritage roses when their black SUV pulled into the driveway. Lydia emerged in heels and a tailored coat, Marcus behind her carrying takeout bags like a peace offering. "Surprise!" she sang, kissing my cheek. We were in the neighborhood. They never were. While I set out plates, Marcus roamed. He opened closet doors, peered into the basement, commented on the outdated kitchen cabinets. Lydia hovered, suggesting simple updates that would modernize the space. Her tone was light, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. "We're worried about you, Mom," she said as they left. "All alone in this big house. What if something happened?" I watched them drive away and felt, for the first time, truly alone. The pressure built slowly, insidiously. Late-night texts with links to assisted living facilities, emails forwarding articles about elderly isolation, falls, financial exploitation of seniors. Ironic in hindsight. Marcus sent listings, sleek one-bedroom condos in vibrant senior communities with pools and shuttle services. I stopped answering every call. I began screening texts, but the more I pulled away, the more insistent they became. Then came the afternoon that changed everything. It was a golden September day. the kind where the light slants just right through the maple trees lining Elm Avenue. I was in the garden, deadheading spent blooms, when the SUV pulled up again. This time, only Lydia emerged. No Marcus, no takeout. Her face was set, determined. "Mom," she said without preamble, "we need to talk." She walked past me into the house as if she already owned it. I followed, wiping soil from my hands, a knot forming in my stomach. In the living room, the same room where I'd rocked her to sleep as a baby, where Richard had proposed on one knee, she turned to face me. "I've sold the house," she said flatly. "The offer was too good to pass up. It'll fund our anniversary trip to Bali. 15 years, Mom, we deserve something special. You have 48 hours to pack what you want to keep. I've booked you a beautiful apartment at Evergreen Meadows. 1 bedroom, all meals included, activities every day. You'll love it." The world tilted. I gripped the back of Richard's old leather recliner to steady myself. "You, what?" Her voice hardened. "Don't make this difficult. Marcus and I have been planning this for months. The buyers close next Friday. They're a young family, perfect for this neighborhood. You can't possibly manage this place anymore." "Lydia," I said slowly, "this is my home. You can't sell it. It's not yours to sell." Something flickered across her face. Irritation, maybe fear. "It's for your own good. You're 72. You're alone. You could fall. You could forget to pay bills. We're protecting you. Protecting me." I stared at my daughter and saw a stranger. When had this happened? When had the little girl who used to bring me dandelions and call them princess flowers become this cold, entitled woman standing in my living room declaring my life over? But here's what Lydia didn't know. The house wasn't in my name alone. 10 years ago, after Richard's first health scare, we'd followed our estate attorney's advice and transferred the deed into the Hayes family revocable trust. I was the sole trustee. Lydia was a contingent beneficiary, meaning she'd inherit only after my death. She had no legal authority to sell, transfer, or even list the property. She couldn't have sold it. I smiled, a small, calm smile that made her falter. "Is that so?" I said softly. "Well then, tell me more about this Evergreen Meadows place." After she left, thrusting a glossy brochure into my hands and speeding off in a cloud of exhaust, I sat in Richard's chair for a long time. Shock gave way to fury, then to something colder. Resolve. My own daughter had tried to evict me from my home to fund a luxury vacation. I needed to understand how far she'd gone. Had she forged documents, found a gullible buyer, or was this all a cruel bluff to scare me into signing over power of attorney? I opened my tablet, yes, I owned a tablet despite what Lydia seemed to think, and began digging. County property records confirmed the trust ownership. No sale had been filed, yet. But I needed more. That night, I called Evelyn Grant, Richard's old colleague from the accounting firm, a retired forensic accountant with a mind like a steel trap. We'd stayed friends after his passing. Over tea the next morning, I told her everything. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "This reeks of fraud, Eleanor. Let's see how deep it goes." She helped me access public records and, using an old joint account from Lydia's college days that she'd never closed, I was still a co-signer, we pulled credit reports. What we found chilled me. Lydia and Marcus were drowning. 6-figure credit card debt. A personal loan for $150,000 taken out 6 months ago. Payments to a luxury travel agency, $62,000 for a 2-week Bali package. Private villa, spa treatments, helicopter tours. Their condo mortgage was 2 payments behind. Marcus's latest startup had imploded, taking investor money with it. They weren't planning a celebration. They were desperate. The house, my house, valued at nearly $900,000 in the current market, was their lifeline. I felt sick. Not just betrayed, but grieving. This wasn't the daughter I'd raised. But grief hardened into determination. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't sign anything. I would fight. I called Harlan Reed, our estate attorney, a gruff, brilliant man who'd known Richard since law school. "Eleanor," he said when I finished telling him, "this is elder financial exploitation. Possibly attempted fraud. We're going to stop this cold." His plan? Document everything. Wait for their next move. Gather evidence. It came sooner than expected. The next afternoon, a moving truck pulled up at noon. Two men in uniforms knocked. "Mrs. Hayes? We're here to help with your relocation to Evergreen Meadows. Your daughter hired us." My heart pounded, but I'd prepared. Harlan was already there, sipping coffee in the kitchen. He stepped forward, phone recording. "Gentlemen, I'm Harlan Reed, Mrs. Hayes' counsel. Show me the work order." They did. Signed by Lydia Vale. Paid in full. Harlan's voice was ice. "This move is unauthorized. The property is held in a revocable trust with Eleanor Hayes as sole trustee. Lydia Vale has no legal authority. You will not remove a single item from this premises." The movers hesitated. But the daughter said, "Call her," Harlan said, "and bill her directly, or face charges as accessories to fraud." They left quickly. Minutes later, the SUV screeched into the driveway. Lydia stormed up the walk, Marcus behind her, both furious. "What the hell, Mom?" Lydia shouted. "We had everything arranged." "No," I said, stepping onto the porch beside Harlan. "You attempted fraud. The house is in trust. You can't sell it." Marcus sneered. "You're being selfish. You don't need all this space. You're hoarding equity while you what?" I asked quietly. "Fund a vacation you can't afford?" Lydia's face went white. "How did you—" "I know about the debt, the Bali deposit, the overdue mortgage. I know everything." Harlan added. "We've documented the moving contract, the false representations. Leave now, or we call the police." They left, tires spinning. But it wasn't over. The manipulation escalated. First came the tears. Voicemails from Lydia, voice breaking. "Mom, how can you do this to me? I'm your only child. I love you." Then gifts, flowers, chocolates, a silk scarf, each with pleading notes. Then anger. "You're choosing a house over your family. You'll die alone in that museum." I saved every message, every email, every delivery receipt. Meanwhile, I wasn't alone. My support network, stronger than Lydia realized, rallied. Beatrice from my knitting circle, a retired social worker, connected me with an elder abuse support group. Clara, our tech expert, installed security cameras covering every angle of the property. Friends checked in daily. The library director offered to testify to my competence if needed. At the support group, I heard stories that echoed mine. Children pressuring parents to sell homes, forging documents, isolating them under the guise of care. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I was surviving. Lydia's next move was bolder. A wellness check. A social worker arrived after an anonymous report, later traced to Lydia's phone, claiming I was neglecting myself, possibly confused. I welcomed her with tea and fresh scones. We talked for 2 hours. I showed her my organized bills, my volunteer schedule, my garden, my medical records, perfect cognitive scores, the cameras, the moving contract, the credit reports. She left with a very different report. Possible financial exploitation of a competent senior. Then came the forged documents. Harlan discovered them when a title company contacted him. Someone had submitted a listing agreement and power of attorney bearing my signature. It was a forgery. Crude, but convincing enough to fool a busy agent. We sued. Not just to stop the sale, but for damages. Emotional distress, legal fees, attempted fraud. The court date was set for November. In the weeks leading up, Lydia and Marcus pulled out all stops. A hired psychiatrist visited under false pretenses, asking leading questions designed to paint me as declining. I recorded it. They spread rumors among old neighbors. Eleanor's not herself anymore. So sad. But my community knew better. The day of the hearing arrived cold and clear. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, smelling of lemon polish. Lydia and Marcus sat with their attorney, a slick young man who looked nervous. They brought witnesses, a colleague of Marcus's, Lydia's assistant, the psychiatrist. Harlan and I had truth on our side. Their case. I was incompetent, isolated, unable to manage my affairs. The move had been miscommunicated, but motivated by love. The psychiatrist testified to signs of paranoia and resistance to necessary help. Then Harlan cross-examined. He presented the financial records, their debt, the Bali payment, the overdue mortgage, the forged documents, the moving contract. security footage of confrontations, testimony from my doctor, the library director, neighbors, friends, all affirming my sharpness, independence, active life. He called me to the stand. I spoke calmly. I am 72, not 92. I pay my bills, I drive, I garden, I teach classes, I hike, my mind is clear. My daughter attempted to sell my home without my consent to fund a vacation she couldn't afford. She forged documents. She hired movers to remove me by force. This isn't love. This is exploitation. I looked at Lydia. Her face was pale, eyes down. The judge, a woman with steel gray hair and no patience for nonsense, ruled swiftly. The court finds overwhelming evidence of attempted financial exploitation and fraud. Defendants will pay all legal fees and court costs. This matter is referred to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Lydia gasped. Marcus went rigid. As we left the courthouse, Harlan squeezed my arm. You did it, Eleanor. But the fallout was only beginning. The DA's investigation moved fast. Within weeks, Lydia was placed on administrative leave. Her firm couldn't risk the scandal. Marcus's remaining investors pulled out. Their condo went into foreclosure. The Bali trip, non-refundable, was lost. They filed bankruptcy 6 months later. I received one letter from Lydia, hand-delivered. Mom, I hate you for this. You destroyed us. Our home, our jobs, our future. All because you couldn't let go of a house. I hope you're happy rattling around in your museum while your only daughter suffers. I never wanted to hurt you. I was scared. We were drowning. But you didn't care. Enjoy your victory, Lydia. I read it once, then filed it with the evidence. I updated my will. The house upon my death would be sold. Proceeds to establish the Eleanor Hayes Foundation for Elder Protection, providing legal aid to seniors facing family exploitation. Lydia would receive nothing, not out of spite, but because some betrayals sever trust forever. Life after the storm was sweeter than I imagined. I renovated the house with money I'd saved over decades. A new sunroom filled with light, updated kitchen where I hosted weekly dinners, a guest suite for visiting friends. The knitting circle grew into a community hub. Workshops, book clubs, holiday parties. I traveled, not to Bali, but to places Richard and I had dreamed of. Tuscany, the Scottish Highlands, a river cruise down the Danube. I fell in love again, quietly, with Thomas, a widower from the hiking group who made me laugh and never once asked about my finances. The garden flourished. My roses won first prize at the county fair 3 years running. I spoke at conferences, support groups, senior centers. My message was simple. You are not obligated to sacrifice your security for your children's mistakes. Love does not mean surrender. You have the right, no, the duty, to protect yourself, even from family. Especially from family. 5 years after the hearing, I hosted a garden party on a perfect June evening. 50 people filled the backyard. Friends, volunteers, foundation board members, Thomas beside me holding my hand. Someone asked if I ever regretted how things ended with Lydia. I looked around. Laughter under string lights, tables laden with food, roses blooming in riotous color, the house glowing warm behind us. Not for a second, I said, and I meant it. The house on Elm Avenue was more than wood and brick. It was my life, my victory, my home, and no one, not even my own daughter, would ever take it from me again.